Good morning, everyone. We are going to talk today about naturalization. So let's just wait for a few more people. Good morning, everyone. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And the topic for today is naturalizing as a US citizen. Basically, we are going to talk to permanent residents of the United States and when and how would they know that they are eligible to become US citizens and apply for citizenship. So for those of you who's here joining me for the first time, hi, good morning. I am immigration attorney Connie Kaplan. We help immigrants everywhere make the United States their permanent home. We are located in Florida, but we help immigrants everywhere, okay? But today we are specifically going to talk about permanent residents of the United States becoming US citizens. And how do you know that you are eligible? So while you guys are placing your questions in the chat, which I'll be more than happy to address, as you guys know, let's talk about how to become a US citizen. So first things first, you need to be a permanent resident. Without being a permanent resident first, you cannot naturalize. Now, there are other ways. You may have been a US citizen by birth. You may have acquired citizenship. You may have derived citizenship. That really depends on your parents, grandparents, and it's a lot of timelines involved. Good morning, everyone. And so those are not what we are going to talk about today. We are not going to talk about being born a US citizen, acquiring US citizenship, or deriving US citizenship, because those are not as common, okay? The deriving and acquisition of citizenship are not that common. However, the most common way to obtain citizenship, US citizenship, is for someone who has been a permanent resident of the United States for a period of time and who is now eligible to apply. So how do you know you are eligible to apply for US citizenship? Okay, so please feel free to put your questions in and I'll be more than happy to address them. Make sure they are related to this topic because we have more viewers today because of the topic. So if you have been a permanent resident, it doesn't matter if it's conditional resident, doesn't matter if it's 10-year resident, okay? If you have been a permanent resident for at least 5 years, you are eligible to apply for naturalization. It's not exactly 5 years, it's 4 years and 9 months because you can apply 90 days in advance of your 5-year anniversary. So you can apply for that, but you also need to meet additional criteria. So I'll go into that criteria in a minute. Now, if you have obtained your residency by virtue of being married to a US citizen, and you are still married and living with your spouse when you are applying for citizenship, you can apply for that 3 years instead of 5 years after obtaining your permanent residency. That's exactly 2 years and 9 months again, because there is a 90-day period before your third anniversary on which you can apply for citizenship. So knowing that, once you know you're eligible to apply because you met the timeline, what are the other conditions that you need to meet in order to apply for citizenship? You need to show that you can speak English, read English, and you understand it's not 5 years of being married. It's 5 years from obtaining the green card. Thanks for asking that, okay? So you need to meet other criteria. What's the other criteria? You need to pass the English and civics test. So the civics test, most people know, it's those 100 questions that you need to know the answers to, and you need to get 6 of those questions right in order to pass. They are not They are not going to ask you 100 questions. They will ask about 10, and you need to pass about 6 out of 10. And if you do fail the first time, they are going to give you another opportunity in a few months to go and pass it. Try to pass it again, or you will be denied. Many people are saying, well, I'm too old. I cannot study English. I cannot learn another language, or I have a medical condition that does not allow myself to study English. If that is the case and your doctor can certify it, you can apply for an exemption. Okay? It is not common, but it's doable. We do those all the time. And we have many people calling about that. Well, my mom, my grandma wants to apply, but they are afraid because for some reason or another, they don't speak English well enough. Okay, so we can help with those. So let's say you're passing those questions and you're passing the English reading, writing, okay? And now they are going to look over your application. It's a 21-page application. And you've been following me long enough. Immigration is not about filling out forms, okay? Immigration, it really is about proving to the government that you are eligible for the benefit that you are seeking to obtain, and that you are a good candidate for it. So for naturalization, to become a US citizen, because there are so many other benefits associated with that, they are very strict. And you have to show that you are a person of good moral character. So you're wondering, what does that mean, and how do we get that, and how do we prove that? Well, how do you prove that is, let's go over those factors, okay? Make sure you don't have a criminal record that prevents you from being naturalized, okay? If you have had some run-ins with the law, depending on the specific crime that you have committed, then that would prevent you from obtaining citizenship. But you are not going to know that until you have an immigration attorney run a full analysis of your criminal record and compare the state record with the federal rules, because immigration is federal, and see if how do they compare and what is the repercussions of your criminal record. Just because you have something in your record does not mean you can't get citizenship. And also, just because it's something minor in the record doesn't mean you can. So it really depends. It is very analysis specific, depends on the statute, depends on the actual crime that occurred, depends on the actual sentencing, and all that needs to be compared with the federal record. So that is on the criminal side. Now let's talk about other things that may make you ineligible to become a US citizen, okay? You do not have continuous residency in the United States, or you do not have physical presence. You need to be in the United States when you are applying for the naturalization, and continuous residence means that you have not had a trip longer than 6 months outside the United States. So they will not consider that you abandon your permanent residency. And you are going to show that you have lived in the United States for more time than you have lived abroad. This is quite common, and especially now with COVID. But even before, it's quite common for people who come here, obtain permanent residency, and because they have businesses or property back home that they need to close or dispose of, and that it takes time, longer time than they anticipate outside the United States. Sometimes they stay too long outside, or they travel outside and stay outside the United States for too long. That cuts continuous residency in the United States. So there are ways to overcome that, all right? So keep that in mind. And then the two big things that are always coming up on applications for naturalization is taxes and child support. So let's talk about taxes and child support. If you failed to file your taxes, you do not have good moral character. If you filed your taxes and you owe taxes to the IRS, you have to have a payment arrangement with the IRS, and you making payments on those you're making payments on that payment arrangement, okay, on a regular basis. So you can prove to the federal government, immigration authorities, that you are meeting your obligations. And so you are a person of good moral character. The other thing is child support, okay? It doesn't matter if your child is over the age of 18 or 21. It doesn't matter if you don't have a child support order with the court. It doesn't matter if you have an agreement with the other parent that they don't expect any money from you. The government will want to see that you are supporting your child or your children. So those are the critical things that we are talking about today. How to make sure that before you apply for naturalization, because the price is quite steep, okay, that you make sure you are going to qualify and you are going to obtain that, okay? So let's address some of the questions that I see popping up here. I don't see too many. It's good because I asked you to ask only questions regarding the naturalization process. So 5 years of being married or 5 years after obtaining your green card. Being married to a US citizen does not give you any status whatsoever. Zero. None. Okay? You are obtaining status once you get the work permit and once you get the green card. Everything starts from the time you got your green card for purposes of citizenship. So it's 5 years from obtaining your green card. Now you talked marriage. So if you are still married and living with your spouse, it could be 3 years. How can I come and study in the US? I think I have about 5 videos on that. Is it possible to buy property in US from New Zealand? Yes, it is. You do not need to be a US citizen in order to buy property in the United States. Is it possible for me to shift from UAE to USA? I am sure it is possible, but I would need to know a lot more about that. There are generally, and I speak about this all the time. You guys can see my other videos. So there are generally 5 ways to come to the United States, and those are asylum if you are already in the United States, green card lottery if you're still outside the United States, and then you have family options, investment, and employment options. For all those, generally speaking, you need a sponsor unless you have, you can qualify on your own based on dollar amount for investment or your education level and experience in your field and how high you are in your field. All right, so we addressed those questions. So let's talk again about naturalization for just 1 second. After you are applying for naturalization, you will get the receipt. The receipt does not confer any status on you. Then you are going to get a biometrics appointment. So you go for your fingerprints and have your picture taken. And then you're waiting for your interview. So be prepared for that interview. Know your questions. Know the 100 questions. Make sure you qualify again. Nothing has changed since the time of the application. All right. So that is what we talked about today. Let's see. There are a couple of questions, and then we're going to wrap this up. After buying property in the US, would I be eligible to visit US to see it and change visa? You should not buy property in the US without seeing it first. That is first. Travel here as a tourist, perhaps, and then buy the property, see it, and then changing your visa. Just so you know, buying property in the United States does not make you eligible for residency in the United States. Okay, it doesn't. When I say by investment, I mean investment in a business that creates full-time jobs for US workers. It is not investing in a property. Now, it depends on the type of property. If you're buying a hotel and that hotel creates jobs and it creates over 10 full-time jobs, then perhaps, yes, you can obtain it based on that investment. But single-family property that most people think about, no, that is not it. When can we apply for the green card for United States? Whenever you have a sponsor and you're ready to apply. All right. So we addressed the questions today. We addressed the topic of naturalization. And we are going to talk to you guys again tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Good to see you all. And let's address some more questions tomorrow. Bye now.